Hi, it's Ozan here, and I'm joined today by property investor and entrepreneur Kevin Brittain. Kevin, thank you very much for the interview.
Thanks for having me, Ozan.
So what we're here to learn about today is how on earth you went from working 60 hours per week in your property business to just 6 hours per month or 90 minutes per week. So just before we dive into that, Kevin, what was your background before property?
Well, I graduated with a business degree around 15 years ago now, I suppose, and I went into the corporate world, as a lot of people do. I had a medical sales background, so I went into medical sales. I had a good salary. It was a good career, and I enjoyed it. But I realised really quickly that my value was being dictated to by somebody else, and that didn't resonate very well with me. It didn't sit well with me. I realised very quickly, progressing through the ranks, that the higher up I progressed, the more time, the more of my life they wanted, and in actual fact, I was completely trading my time for money, which didn't sit with my core values. I wanted to spend time with family and do the things that I wanted to do rather than being dictated to. So that was my background, medical sales, and I then left medical sales when I was on. This is summarise how long ago it was. Back in 2010, I was on a progressive property masterclass. I think that was only when they had one course at the time. So
got a few more now.
There's a few more now. Progressive Towers never existed. It was a dingy hotel in Central. I think it might have been on the outskirts of Peterborough. It was that dingy. And to summarise, it was Rob and Mark actually delivering it as well. So
all of the course, doing everything.
All of the course. So that was how I got introduced to property as such.
Okay, great. So what does your property portfolio look like today?
Property portfolio today, it's quite vast. I've tried lots of different strategies. I mean, I've done multiple courses through progressive predominantly, but I've always tried to take action. As a result, we've got just under 100 properties, 125 units, if you like, including service accommodation. So that's broken down roughly 34 service accommodation units, 40 HMOs, around 50 single lets. Tried multiple different strategies. I've got 20 of that portfolio I own jointly with joint venture partners that I didn't put any money in, but I have 50% of the assets. I've done lease options, done exchange with delayed completions. There's one commercial to residential conversion in there where we converted a nightclub to 9 self-contained apartments that we now operate as service accommodation. And I've done rent-to-rents as well, so I've tried and dabbled with quite a few property strategies over the years.
Sounds like you've done sort of quite a lot of training and then implemented quite a lot of the different, what people call property strategies. How much of your existing portfolio of the 125 units or 100 properties is now rent-to-rent?
I don't have any rent-to-rents anymore. Okay. I did, basically, when you're in property and obviously you're having to refinance cyclically, I was finding the periods where I couldn't pull money out from my portfolio, I wanted to continue to scale. So I took on 13 rent-to-rents that I've now actually handed back, tried to focus now a bit more, consolidate the portfolio on stuff that I actually own. But I have done 13 rent-to-rents in the past as well.
Okay, so fast forwarding to sort of today, you're also involved with systems and outsourcing, aren't you?
I am, yes.
So tell us a little bit about well, we don't want to spoil it all because you've got a talk coming up soon at certain property events. We don't want to spoil too much, but what sort of, what's your involvement today with that? Well,
if we go back to when I was actually, that portfolio was a real challenge for me to manage. It's a lot of units, a lot of moving cogs and parts involved with it. And
I mean, where are those? Those properties aren't all in Cambridgeshire, where we are today.
No. Due to the timing of when I got involved into property, I'd done a lot of no money down stuff in the past, and ultimately that type of strategy often involves where the deal is rather than the actual finding an area and just focusing on that. So I have properties all over the country, so the areas, it's probably easier saying the areas I don't have is the southwest. I don't have anything in the southwest. The very southeast I don't, but we've got stuff in Ireland, in Scotland, South Wales. A lot of it's in the northwest, so Manchester, Liverpool, Oldham, Burnley, Blackburn, up to Lancaster, across to the northeast, County Durham, Hull. We've got one in Berkshire, in Finch-Hampstead. We've got one in London, and then a lot in the East Cambridgeshire vicinity. So a lot of the HMOs are kind of Mildenhall, Newmarket, little bit of Soham and into Haverhill as well. So they're everywhere.
So Kevin, when you've just read off that list to me just now, I've had two emotions go through my mind, through my body. One is, that's incredible. What an incredible achievement, and what a lovely, vast property portfolio you have with all different strategies. And the other part was absolute terror at the thought of trying to manage all of that.
I would not recommend anybody adopt that scattergun approach. I mean, I did it because, you know, I feared procrastination. So all of the courses and stuff that I learned, I just wanted to implement. And if the deal was there and I thought I could make it, I took action. You know, I followed a famous saying, I think it was by Sir Richard Branson, if the opportunity presents itself, just say yes. And I was following that mantra to the T.
And then working out how to do it like he did afterwards.
And it was horrendous. I mean, trying to manage all of that, and bear in mind some of the peripheral stuff we do have letting agencies, but the vast majority of it we run and manage ourselves. And it was so overwhelming. I felt completely out of control. You know, I was doing 60 hours a week. You know, if we say 60 hours, that was the minimum I was doing on a weekly basis. I was probably doing more than that more often than not. So it was hugely challenging, and I really wanted to systemize my business. I've been trying to do it time and time again and failing miserably. I go back to the point in time where I actually remember spending one afternoon trying to write an operations manual on a Word document, and it took me about 2 to 3 hours to write some instructions for about a 5-minute task. And then when my wife spot checked it, and she couldn't follow it anyway, so it shows how bad I was at it.
But it is really hard. I think you're being a bit hard on yourself there. I think it's really hard. I've done exactly the same. 2 hours on a 5-minute task, or asking some staff members to do them, and then not being able to follow the procedure myself, because even though I know how it's supposed to be, I think it's a real challenge writing that.
Completely,
writing that system.
Not just the laborious task of actually getting it down on paper or getting it into some format that you can delegate, but the actual fact is, the matter is, I was then trying to delegate stuff to people, and it was taking me longer to give them the instruction and tell them what to do than the actual task it would have took me to do myself. So it's completely counterproductive. So, you know, I had a really challenging time of it, and it was only when I met my now business partner, Steve Day. I'm sure a lot of you know Steve, and he's very into his systems and processes. He founded the systems and outsourcing company, and it was random how I came across him, and I'll tell you more about that in my presentation.
Okay, we won't spoil too much of this, because your story is really great, and I will try not to spoil too much of it in this interview, but at the same time, there's a few things we need to cover. So. Basically, the time that you got back from systemising and outsourcing your property business, you then chose to reinvest that time into your current venture with Steve. Yeah,
well, I mean, I won't tell you, like I say, how I met Steve, but the point of the matter is this is a guy who lives in Sweden, and he has a portfolio in the UK, a successful property business in the UK, and he was managing to operate and run it from another country. And I thought, okay, my scattergun approach isn't ideal, but if somebody can run their property portfolio from another country, then surely I should be able to do it when I can get to some of my properties within 30 minutes. So that was the really key point, and that's why I really wanted to work with Steve. And from following his Systems for Outsourcing program, it was life-changing. I mean, finally there was a delivery mechanism of being able to systemize and outsource the whole business in a very structured way to get a really consistent outcome to any task that was delegated. You know, the whole process of getting your operations manuals created was one part of it, but then the second part of it is having a delivery platform that you can actually manage and control and have visibility of remote workers, and that was really important. And it was only when it took me about 6 months to do it. I think in hindsight, if I'd do it again today with the knowledge I now have, I could probably have done that in half the time. But
we're talking about a business that already had staff, though, aren't we?
Yes,
it's not as if you were a startup. You had
9 staff,
125 units, did 9 staff. Yeah. This is a £1 million property portfolio.
Turnover just over £1 million per annum, but that's not profit. That's I'd love it to be profit, but it's turnover. And there are still inefficiencies in the business. I'm not saying it's the most amazingly run business, but the key part about it is it's not about getting perfect. It's about having systems, having processes, because even if you have a process that isn't perfect, if you've got that delivery mechanism to get it out to a virtual assistant or a team member that's going to run it, if there's any inefficiencies or any fail points, they'll be identified when that person you're delegating to is actually carrying out the task. And in actual fact, they then start making suggestions on how you can improve these things. So get a process, get a system out there, because it will improve just with a natural evolution of people completely doing the task on a day-to-day basis. So that's really, really important. But it was as a result of my experience with systems for outsourcing that I managed to go from working 60 hours down to 90 minutes a week ultimately. I mean, I now run that whole property business with one 90-minute meeting per week, and I can go into detail a bit more during the event. But it was following on from that. I mean, in conversations with Steve, I spent a lot of time speaking about what I was doing and how I was doing it, that we kind of struck up a good relationship. We realised our values and vision was quite well aligned. We had contrasting skill sets, which always helped as well. Yes. But by implementing what I learned from Steve, it freed me up. So all of a sudden I was spending 60 to probably 80 hours a week on my property business. I'm now spending 90 minutes a week. So I'm sitting there thinking, right, I need to look at what I'm doing next, because as crazy as it sounds, if you haven't got stuff to do, you find yourself in a bit of a lull, and which is just as crazy as you might think. But being busy is good, but being busy on your own terms, and that's the key point. So I approached Steve and said, look, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I think you're a great guy that I see a lot of value in working with. I think we'd work really well together. Obviously, with what I've done, do you think there's something we can do together? And as a result, I'm now business partners with Steve Day, and we now jointly run the systems and outsourcing company.
That's absolutely fantastic. So Kevin, we've touched on it, and I feel like we've slightly teased our audience by saying we will tell you this, weren't it? But we don't want to kind of spoil your story. You're sharing with our guests at PP and Canary Wharf on the 11th of April how you went from, the specifics of how you went from 60 hours a week to 6 hours a month, and kind of some of your challenges along the way and how you approached it. Yeah. So we kind of won't go into that anymore in this video, but also you'll be there to network with our guests, because you're an executive founder member with Steve, Systems and Outsourcing, an executive founder member of PP and Canary Wharf. But also let's just touch on the masterclass as well, because you're running a masterclass. You ran it last month and you're repeating it this month. Yeah,
just my presentation is going to be the journey. It'll be high level, but it'll take you through the journey from where I was and the steps I took to get there. That's what my short presentation will cover at the event. But we're also running a complimentary masterclass, which is called Free Your Time. And ultimately, it would be an hour-long session for people that have paid for a ticket for PPN Masterclass, for PPN Canary Wharf. They paid for a ticket, then they're eligible to apply for a place on the complimentary masterclass. And what we're covering there is the 6 main steps you need to take to be able to outsource anything. So it's anybody who's new to systemizing and outsourcing. It's really, really useful. It kind of changes your mindset on this is where I am, this is where I want to be. What do I need to do and how do I need to do it? And it will give you those 6 really key points that if you take those away and implement them, it will make a big difference to your business.
Okay, so PP and Canary Wharf, the pre-event networking starts at 6. Your masterclass is sort of 5 to 6, so they can attend both the masterclass and the event.
Yeah, that's correct.
It takes place in one of the boardrooms at level 39 at 1 Canada Square. The boardroom only fits about 15 people, which means we've only got space for 13 delegates. When I checked before we did this video, there were sort of 4 spaces left, I think, on that masterclass.
Well, 1 went this morning, so we're now down to 3. So
slight corrections. 3 spaces left on the masterclass. By the time this video is finished, there may not be any, but assuming that there are at least 3 spaces, there are 3 spaces on the masterclass. What do people need to do? Do we just get them to tag themselves into the video?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we'll be checking all the posts where this is shared. So just tag your name on. It is a first come first served basis. So if you tag yourself, we'll make contact with you and show you how you can confirm your place.
Okay, so you'll have a talk on the event. You'll be networking with our guests, and you're also running a free systems and outsourcing masterclass as well. So pretty busy evening for you on the 11th of April. Kevin, just thank you very much for making the time. I know you're a busy guy. You weren't a busy guy, but you are a bit more now with your new venture. Yep. So thank you very much for making the time for this interview, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. See you soon.